Hey, what's going on, guys? So this will be a sweet little double kill with some mesh mines here. First guy I get on the second attempt, and the second guy, I go to kill him, and I do end up killing him, but I shot the hood of the car, and he basically was too close to me, so I killed myself. But I do love making people pay who play in cars. I really can't stand that playstyle, just driving around, trying to run people over all the time, and never getting out of the car. You never really take any risk doing that. So I've really made it my mission to just really make those people pay. So I can hear a guy moving right here. And you'll see the importance of audio here in just 1 second. Because I go this way and I go, oh, he's going this way. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, he's going this way. I'm like, he's right there. Beautiful. Without audio, without like attention to detail on audio, you wouldn't be able to know that. And so I've talked about that in a couple previous videos. And it's just really key is just your audio, you know, how much you pay attention. And this is why some people play better in solos, and why solos is more of like a, I guess you could call it a try-hard mode in some ways, because, you know, you're really just, same there, right? If I hadn't heard his footsteps to my left, never would have done any of that. So I'm going up to him, as you see, as I constantly say, I'm not looting the bag right away, although I am in it pretty quick, probably a little quicker than I would like, but, you know, this gameplay was not from yesterday, so, you know, it's a little understandable that happens. Now you'll see me here. I'm just going to hang out here and get some zombies. As you see, I popped that brawler, which is, in my opinion, the preferred way to handle zombies. As I said before, you don't make any noise when you're using it, and you don't have to worry about dropping your gun or anything, so you're basically protected from that. But, man, I was dealing with some issues here with my footage. This wasn't the exact game that I wanted to put up. I had a different game I wanted to do. But there were some real serious issues going on with audio and video. So much so that I had to deal with something that I used to make fun of PC gamers for, and is really one of the reasons why there are a decent amount of people who don't play on PC. And that's because I couldn't figure out what the issue was. There was some sort of sync issue between the audio and video. It was playing, the audio looked correct, and it was playing the sounds at the correct time, but the video was delayed. So, like, my guy would run, and then you wouldn't be hearing any footsteps, and then all of a sudden you'd hear the audio of just, like, me flipping around and shooting a guy, and then it wouldn't happen on screen for, like, 3/4 of a second or a second. So I couldn't figure out what was going on. Reclosed and reopened the project, like, 3 or 4 times. Even went and decided maybe something was wrong with my Adobe, so I went and updated Adobe Premiere Pro. And then I went and updated my drivers for my graphics card, which took about 25 minutes worth of troubleshooting, 25-30 minutes of troubleshooting for all that, just to get back into the game and have the same issue going on again. And it was infuriating. So, and here we go again. I've said this multiple times before, but you don't want to get into a box like this right away. It makes a big noise when you unlock it, and many times there are people who just like to sit outside of the graveyard or sit outside of wherever and wait for that sound. Wait for that sound of the box being finished so that they can hop right in there and just kill someone who's just standing still and get an easy kill. So I don't ever get in there and loot that right away. Now, this is a sweet gun that I have here. This is the Cordite, which is my favorite gun, but this is the Mastercraft variant. So there's, you know, every gun you can equip a bunch of different camos. You can equip all different, I mean, there's a lot of different camos, maybe 25 different camos for each gun. And then on top of that, you can do the Mark II variants, which are basically just like slightly different weapon skins, just like a base skin. You can still put camos on some of those, but they retain some of those base characteristics, but it still looks like the main one. This one is actually a Mastercraft, which is the 3rd variant, and that's like a specific design of the gun.
Circle collapse imminent.
So the gun itself and the camo are unchangeable, so there's nothing I can do to change this. And at first I didn't really like it. It's called 0G. At first, I just bought it because, you know, I mean, this is my favorite gun, and I don't have all the stuff for it yet, so figured, you know, I might as well mix it up. I've been playing with this gun for days and days of playtime, so. But this one is sick, and the reason it's sick, and the reason I've kept it, is because and actually, you can see on the front of it, it looks like there's a silencer on the front. That's because I have the long barrel, and the long barrel just makes it look like there's a silencer on there. But the main reason is because it's a 0G, so it's a space-themed gun. And as you get kills, you actually get some really, really sick effects, including after, I think it's like 3 or 4 kills, you actually have Sputnik, which, if you don't know, Sputnik was the first satellite ever launched by man. Russians launched it in I think late 50s, early 60s. I can't exactly remember when they launched it, but it was before, I think it was late 50s because it was right before they actually went to space, which was early 60s, but sometime in there. So, 60 years ago, they launched the first satellite ever, and it was Sputnik is what they called it. And it was just like a metal ball with some antennas strapped to it. And so what happens is after you get a few kills, Sputnik actually starts orbiting your gun on your screen. And at first I thought it was some sort of like glitch or something. I was in a tense late game moment and I hadn't, in some games you end up using one gun all the way through. I've said that too before. Like if I'm feeling my assault rifle, if I'm playing with an assault rifle and it's just feeling good, then a lot of times I won't switch off of it too often. Like a SWAT or something, I'm just tearing people up. I often won't switch off of it. And the same with the cordite, but in a lot of cases I end up getting, a handful of kills with each, like 3-4 kills with each. So by the time you get to the end of the game, you don't quite have 5 yet. So I got a kill near the end of the game, and it was like, boom! All of a sudden, it popped on my screen. I was like, "What is going on right now? There's some sort of weirdo graphical glitch going on right now." And turns out it was actually Sputnik orbiting the gun, and I think that's one of the sickest effects ever. I absolutely love space and everything to do with space and all that kind of stuff. So it was just super sick to see that. Now, I was going to cut this part out of the game because it's just like a slow part with nothing going on, but it's important to know that this can definitely happen on any game you play. And a lot of times it's not for lack of trying. Previously, I played so passively that I actually had games like this literally all the time. In fact, most games I had were like this, where you just, you might get a kill or two at the beginning, and then you would just never see anybody again until the end. And it does still happen. Again, not for lack of trying. Nowadays, I definitely don't try to avoid fights like that. I have said in a couple previous videos about how, like, I generally, I'm not trying to avoid gunfights, but if I see a guy who's pretty far, I'm not just going to take some shots at him and try to engage just, for no reason, because you're not going to kill him for sure, so you might as well just wait and try to run into him later. So I just left this in here because it's very indicative of what happens in these games sometimes. And, this is a path I take over to this area when the circle's over here most of the time. I've actually found that as I play more, I like to take very similar paths, and the reason for that is because you get really familiar with the paths, you get really familiar with the places guys like to hang out, and the places guys usually come from, and generally like the speed and all that kind of stuff, so you get a lot more familiar with the areas. And so I tend to take similar paths when the circle is in similar locations, because I generally drop in similar locations. So in this case, I follow this path pretty often, actually. Kind of up along the edge, and I get up as close as I can to the edge because I want to be on the highest ground possible. Sort of just limits, getting killed from behind for no reason. But, this is a good solid, 5 minutes or 6 minutes worth of, not encountering anybody. And, it happens. It happens sometimes. And I've had games where I actually had a couple games recently where I have ended up with 2 or 3 kills at the end because I just literally never found anybody. And when I was sort of really getting into the submachine gunning game style and play style, that happened to me a couple times. I won a game with 3 kills, and I got 2 of the it was 3 people were left, and then I had 0 kills, and then I ended up with 2 kills and the win. So it's like I got both the final guys, and I just, for some reason in my head I thought maybe I'm just being too passive still, but then I started realizing there are generally just, it happens because of the nature of this game. It's not always predictable. The way the circles collapse and the location of the circles is different every game. It's random. And, of course, if you play long enough, you do run into circles that end up being the same. In fact, last night, the win that I got yesterday was at the train station, and I've never had a circle finish there before. Obviously, they do finish there in games that I've been a part of, but I've never actually been a part of a circle that's finished there or even seen one. So I've never even been that late in the game at the train station. So, you still see them randomly. So that just speaks to the random nature of the game as far as every circle is different. So there are just times and opportunities where, also the plane path affects that too, or the helicopter path at the beginning. If the helicopter path is along the very bottom edge of the map, sometimes you get those 1 in 75, 1 in 100 times you'll get one that's really low on the map or something, which means that a lot of times the whole top part of the map is virtually unused for almost all that time. And I don't remember where the thing was on this one, but, this is just one of those games. It's just one of those random games where you know, it wasn't like I was trying to avoid any conflict. I just didn't really see any guys. It just, this upper half of the map happened to be just dead. So there's my third kill. And now we see this guy in the car, and he does tend to be a little bit of a problem for me. That was a much better grenade than usual, but I just didn't cook it. I was really having issues with grenades in cars for some reason, and even when I watched some of my other footage, just not even grenades in cars, but like just grenades and trying to place them correctly, because you're throwing them pretty decent distances, and a lot of times you're not cooking them. Like, there's an extra second on the grenade. So all the years that Call of Duty's had frags in the multiplayer, it's always been a 3-second timer on the grenades. So you have 3 seconds from the time that you cook it to, yeah, see, I almost died there. I was 2 seconds away from death. But you, look at that. You always have a 3-second timer now. In Blackout, it's a 4-second timer. So that, I have been an absolute proponent of frags for many, many years. In fact, frags were maybe one of my best, even going back to, you know, Modern Warfare 3. So that would have been like 2011, 2012. Even going back that far, frags were one of the main tools I used, and I mean, without even bragging, I was exceptional at frags. The kills that I'm able to get with frags back then was just unbelievable. And they had, oh, it's so funny. They used to have that thing, and they still have it now, although it doesn't quite work as well, but it's like the death chatter or whatever they call it. So you kill a person, and then they can hear, or you kill a person, and then you can hear what they said in that second, right when you kill them. And when that first got implemented, I would use it to communicate with the enemy team. Like, I would be trying to do something, like trying to get a flag or something like that, because I always played domination, and I was a little bit more aggressive then in some of the earlier games where I was camping a lot more. So I would like get sniped from a window or something, and I would just say, "I hope you're still there in 30 seconds." And then I'd come right back to that place, kind of in a different area, and just frag him through the window. Cook the frag perfectly and just blow him through the window. I absolutely love that. But for some reason, just that 1 extra second of cook time has completely thrown off all my thrag throws. So it's really throws. It's taken me a while to get back to the point where I can actually throw them accurately. And the aiming, you know, the aiming's kind of all over the place in Blackout without the aim assist. So it's, you know, it's been a struggle, to say the least. And that's why I don't use them on cars. But I've definitely improved quite a bit lately and placing them correctly. And same with guys, when guys are running, because you don't have that extra second, you're expecting that it's going to blow up pretty much on them. And it ends up blowing up a second later, which means they're 10, 15 feet away, and you didn't account for that. So, you know, I've improved at that and gotten better at that. But, again, you know, I'm just kind of trying to hold the high ground up here. I don't know where the circle's going to be yet. I'm not trying to avoid any gunfights necessarily. I just, you know, that guy's driving around in the car, and there's not much cover over here. And so, yeah, see, those shots were all off, which is why I'm healing here. If I had hit him a bunch of times, I would have just re-peeked, but again, missing those shots. I said that in my last video, but if you start shooting at a guy like that, and you just start whiffing all your shots, and you're just missing them, just don't keep shooting. You're wasting time. Just stop shooting. And, yeah, see, I saw him lay down, but I'm trying to close the distance here because I can tell from that distance it's not going to work. And he actually, I don't know how he didn't stun me there, but, you know, he didn't. So now, of course, we made a bunch of noise. We were shooting at each other for a while, so there's going to be more guys. I can see that guy going there. So there's at least one down there. I'm assuming there's probably 2 down there, but I don't want to, you know, I don't really have anything to use down there. I can't really see my equipment there, so I'm not sure if I have something to use, but just, you know, in these situations, I'm trying to keep the higher ground. And see, there's a second guy down there now. So there's 2 guys down there and me, which means there's still 4 guys that I have no idea where they are. So at this point, you know, it's important to just play for information, you know, and even though I see him there looting, I heard this guy, so, you know, you got to deal with that. And then, of course, you see him, and I thought maybe he was really damaged, so I was thinking about taking some shots there, but obviously I didn't. Until then, when he kind of stopped, and then I regret doing that because I should have taken the shots earlier when I actually had the clean shots. Yeah, and you'll see, you know, I'm bursting the gun a little bit there. You know, so a lot of the top guys have talked about recoil control, whereas, you know, where you're just shooting endless clips and you just control the recoil. But I don't believe as much in that. There's several guns that works for. The SWAT is one of them. But yeah, see, this guy, I knew I had to do something here because he had good cover and he was, you know, you really can't let that. And again, that's something I never would have done. Even just a few weeks ago, I never would have played that way. But in that way, you see him and you realize you have to make the play because he's there. And what are you going to do? You're just going to both sit at cover and wait because, you know, see, there's that Sputnik. You see that satellite rotating around my gun? Oh, it's absolutely so sick. And in fact, you know what? This might even have been the game that I realized it, if I'm being honest. But this is just a really tense final circle here because that guy's still spectating me, so his dart's still beeping off in the background. But I'm not going to shoot it. I don't really have a silencer, and I don't really know, you know, where this guy is, so I'm not going to worry about that. You know, he can hear it over there and think it's someone else's dart, which it actually was. And see, as soon as he stops spectating me, dart blows up. So this is just a really tense final circle. And I actually misplay this a little bit. I got lucky. I have talked many, many times about how submachine guns are preferable to assault rifles in most of the gunfights that you fight in Blackout. And you'll see why at the end of this game here in a second, because the guy actually was really mad when he lost. I said something to him. I was like, man, good game. You almost had me. And he's like, oh, he's like, freaking ICR. And I laughed because I just realized, like, you know, he did get me low, but if I hadn't had the cordite out, he certainly would have, you know, it certainly would have got me if I had a rifle out. Now see, okay, now I see him. I don't know if he saw me, so I'm waiting a second, and I can't see him real quick. So I push up, and I tag him a few times. Now my first thought is push him right now. Switch guns, grapple. That was my first thought, immediate. Okay, but he went left instead of right. As you see, look at that though. He had 200 health. So, and my screen's flashing. So he used a trauma. Now I don't know if he had time to use that trauma then, but that was not good for me. I was not close enough to push him. But as you saw, just probably the difference between having to switch from the assault rifle, but I hit him a little bit with the assault rifle, and without even hesitating, I switched guns, jumped off the rock, and ran and grappled to him because I had that advantage. You know, I had damaged him a little bit, and now he's on his heal, so now he has to heal, and I don't, you know? And so that's what I did, and luckily, man, see, I assumed he went right, which is where I would have gone, his left. But I, you know, he went left. He went my left, which was his right. So I flew over the edge. I looked right, and he wasn't there. And I heard him to the left, and I immediately switched back to the left. So I wasn't even looking at him for a second. So I grappled up. He had at least relatively decent health. Even if he hadn't healed, he probably still had 140 or so health. Because, you know, he had a trauma kit on, so I didn't hit him that much. So even then, I grappled up and turned away from him, and he had all those shots on me before I even turned to him, and I still lit him up. And, you know, that's just the difference. He had an ICR, I had a cordite. It's really not a hard thing to know which of those is going to win when you're 10 feet away from a guy. So, anyway, appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will catch you in the next one. See you later.